Let's dive right in. When we talk about nutritional deprivation in India, we're not just talking about a headline. We're talking about a massive roadblock to both people's well-being and the country's economic progress. It's a tough, sticky problem, and to even begin to solve it, you've got to know exactly where the fight is. Today, we're breaking down some new research that gives us a brand new map of hunger in India. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of why this matters so much. It reframes malnutrition not as a single event, but as an inheritance. It's a vicious cycle where a mother's poor health directly impacts her child's future, and that child's future trapping families for generations. So that leads to the really big questions, right? Where is this cycle hitting the hardest? And is that map of hunger even changing? Because if we want to break the cycle, we can't just look at national averages. We have to zoom in and find the specific communities that need our help the most. And that is exactly what this research does. Think of it like swapping an old, blurry paper map for a new, super high-resolution digital one. The goal is to give policymakers a much clearer, more detailed picture of the challenge than they've ever had before. So, what makes this study such a game changer? It's the incredible level of detail. I mean, forget about just looking at national or even state-level numbers. These researchers drilled all the way down to the district level. And this is so important, they split up the rural and urban data. Because, let's be real, the problems in a village can be worlds away from the challenges in a city. They're using the latest, most reliable data to paint a really complete picture. You know, the quality of your data is everything. It's the foundation of the whole thing. If you use older, smaller data sets, you can get a lot of noise that might throw off your results. So to avoid that kind of bias, the researchers were really specific. They chose the latest National Family Health Survey data to make sure their map was built on the most solid ground possible. Okay, so how do they actually measure nutritional deprivation? It's a bit more clever than, just asking people if they're hungry. They used a really smart, multi-layered approach. They focused on two key health indicators. The first is body mass index, or BMI, which is a pretty standard way to measure undernutrition. But the second one is tuberculosis, or TB. Now, you might be thinking, TB? What's that got to do with hunger? Well, it turns out a lot. There's a really strong link between poor nutrition and a person's immune system being too weak to fight off TB. So it works as a really powerful second signal for deprivation. So how did they put those two clues together? They used a simple but really effective rule. Think of it like a smoke alarm in an apartment building. If just one alarm goes off on any floor, the whole building gets alerted. Same idea here. If just one person in a household had a low BMI or had TB, the entire household was flagged as being nutritionally deprived. All right, let's get to the juicy part, the findings. And what they discovered is a classic good news, bad news story. It really is a tale of two Indias. One that shows genuine progress, and another that reveals some deep, persistent problems. So let's start with the good news, because there is some. If you zoom all the way out and look at the whole country, the big picture trend is positive. The study found that overall, nutritional deprivation is going down. Broadly speaking, things are getting better. And we can even put a number to that. If you look at the most deprived rural districts, the rate of deprivation fell by 1.8 percentage points. Now, that might not sound like a huge number, but hey, it's a steady step in the right direction. But, and this is a really big but, that gentle, positive national average, well, it's hiding a much rougher, much more unequal reality on the ground. The progress isn't being shared equally, and for some people, things are actually getting worse. And this is where that district-level data just blows the doors open. In a state like Jharkhand, over 83% of its rural districts are in a state of extreme deprivation. In Bihar, it's almost 74%. We're not talking about a few problem areas. We're talking about entire regions in a state of crisis. This chart really drives the point home. The gap between the best and worst off districts is just staggering. In Dohad, Gujarat, over 42% of households were flagged as deprived. Now, compare that to Pathanamthitta in Kerala, where it was only 7%. That is a six-fold difference. 6! In the same country at the same time. So, to make sense of all these changes over time, the researchers came up with these two really useful terms, hotspots and cold spots. Hotspots are the good news stories, areas that are showing big improvement. Cold spots, those are the areas of concern, the ones getting worse or just staying stuck. Let's start with the hotspots. the success stories. In rural Madhya Pradesh, a remarkable 40% of districts improved enough to climb out of that extreme deprivation category. That's huge. In urban West Bengal, nearly 37% did the same. This proves that real, meaningful change is absolutely possible. But then you have the cold spots, and this is where things get really worrying. In rural Bihar, more than 21% of districts actually fell into the extreme deprivation category. The situation got worse. In urban Meghalaya, a full quarter of districts saw things deteriorate. These are the red flags, the places that are crying out for a different approach. So what's the whole point of all this data? Why make a better map? Well, it's pretty simple. A better map helps you find a better path forward. This isn't just about creating an academic report. It's about creating a practical guide for taking real action. And based on all this, the researchers lay out some really clear common sense recommendations. We're not talking about reinventing the wheel here. Simple things like improving the protein content in school meals, adding more pulses, soya, or eggs, using the incredible network of Anganwadi community health workers for more widespread TB screening, and, this is key, launching public health campaigns aimed specifically at those cold spot districts that are falling behind. And all of this leaves us with the final big question. What we have now is the clearest, most detailed map of where hunger actually lives in India. It shows us where we're winning, and maybe more importantly, it pinpoints exactly where we are losing. The data's on the table, the path forward is clearer than it's ever been. The question now is, can this map guide the kind of action needed to finally break that vicious generational cycle of hunger for good?